Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Military Mondays. For those who don't know who I am Brenda Sanchez. I am a retired Air Force major, and my husband and I now are the co-owners or the co-founders of Life's Real Currency. And I bring you these Military Mondays every single Monday morning at 8 a.m. Mountain Time because, us military people are regimented and like to do things at the same time all the time. So 8 a.m. Mountain Time, we do these, and I love to interview veteran business owners, spouses of veterans, and children of veterans. And I think I'm going to have the honor of interviewing somebody coming up real soon who is just gone into the service and is coming out and will be doing reserves. So I'm really hoping that I can bring him on and give you his experience just going through training. But today, I have the honor of having my very, 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 did I say very enough times, good friend, Aimee Osborne on this morning. Aimee is, how do you describe Aimee? She is a super entrepreneur, in my opinion. She's a go-getter. She's done a lot in the marketing arena. She's currently serving as the marketing and social media person for Red Oak Exteriors. But she's a disabled Army veteran herself, and we'll talk about that. She'll share her experience in the military. And she's the spouse of an upcoming veteran. He's still serving, but her husband is getting ready to retire here in the fall, I think. And so we'll hear a little bit about that and what they're up to and what their plans are in retirement. So welcome to the show, Aimee.
Hey, good morning. Thank you for having me, Brenda.
Oh, I always love having you in my life, and I'm glad we could make this happen and have you on my Military Mondays. So for our viewers, let them know a little bit about you and your Army background, what you did in the Army, and then we'll go from there. How's that sound?
Sounds great. Okay. So, I guess it's the best kept secret. I'm prior service. I'm a disabled veteran, and I was a ammunition specialist in the Army. And I was actually the field side of ammunition specialist because there's several different jobs you can have. You can work at the AHA or the ammo depot, or there's a kind of a plethora of jobs you can have with that description. But I was actually in the field. It was a very field heavy job for me. And I loved it. I really, really loved ammunition because it's a kind of a unique perspective on the Army because you get to see kind of what everybody's doing. So I went to the tank ranges, I went to the Apache ranges, any range and it had ammunition, I was there from C4 all the way up to Apaches and tanks. So it kind of gave me a unique perspective on the Army. It wasn't just kind of like, this is my lane and this is my job. I got to go, I got to go out with the infantry. I got to go out with the scouts. I got to go out with the tankers. So it was a nice experience to be able to well-rounded to see everybody and what they were doing.
And what do you think that you learned in the Army that helps you to be successful today? Because obviously you're not doing ammunition stuff today, but there are a lot of hard skills and soft skills that you learn while you're in the military. What are some of those that you think makes military different, and especially you more successful today?
So I'm going to say something that will shock anybody who knows me, probably. It actually made me a softer female. And I know that's shocking to all of you that know me because you're like, wow, this is softer. That's amazing. That's the truth. It did. It made me just a little bit more cautious of how I present myself in certain situations, especially just being aware of my surroundings and being aware of who's in the room and what might be their perception of things.
And then obviously you're a disabled veteran, and we talked about this prior to the show starting, and you had a strict rule while you were in the Army, and you want to share that with us and how you actually met your husband?
So I did have a strict rule. I one time broke it for a guy up at division, but I did not date anybody that was definitely in my brigade. Because I just didn't want to I saw that happen a lot in the Army, and that's weird, right? You break up with them and now they become a sergeant, or you become a sergeant and it becomes weird, or whatever, an NCO or anybody weird. So I actually met my husband out at a single soldiers day out at Ballora, which is Belton Lake Outdoor Recreational Facilities at Fort Hood. And we were just having a single soldiers day. And yeah, so that's where I met him, was out hanging out at the lake.
Awesome. And so tell us a little bit. You don't have to tell us the whole story, but you're disabled, you're out, you got out, and now you're the spouse. What was that transition like? And I've been both. I've been active duty, the spouse, and then reserves. And it's quite a different role as the spouse. And so tell us about that transition and what it's like to be a spouse, and maybe some of the challenges, but maybe a perspective of serving, how that helps you to appreciate or to better understand his career. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for one, the amazing thing was I did not go in with a language barrier to my husband, which I think is huge. I find a lot of military spouses, they don't even know what half the acronyms mean. And so they're like starting with that, like their husbands come home talking about work, blah, 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 blah. And, as a veteran, this, Brenda, a lot of times you just stop the conversation because you're like, it is not worth it for me to stop and explain to you what I just said over and over again, because you didn't understand half the words I was talking about, or why it's important that he's the brigade sergeant major instead of the division sergeant major, or just all these little different intricacies that we deal with being in the military. So I think that gave me kind of a leg up. I'll be honest with you, I wasn't ready to get out of the Army when I got out of the Army. And so I was honestly, in the beginning, I was pretty angry, and it was really hard transition for me. And I really just wanted to kick anybody who called me a spouse in the beginning. That was a very hard transition for me. And
because you served, so you didn't want to be seen as the spouse. And let's talk about that a little bit, because we are in the minority, but we're not the only ones that have been active duty and then become a spouse, especially for our female viewers that are watching, because they might have met their spouse in the service and decided, either the service decided for them that they were getting out, or they decided to make their family a priority in raising kids. And so they stepped aside to let their husband have the career.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing was, my husband wasn't career when I met him, and I was. I was pissed. I was pissed they wouldn't let me sign like an 8-year contract or a 6-year contract when I first started. They're like, hold on, crazy. You can do 4 years and we'll see where that goes. So, I was that gung ho. I mean, I had Tinkerbell hair. I shaved my head almost to go into the Army. I mean, I didn't wear makeup. I didn't do my nails. I was that soldier where you looked at twice, and unless you looked at the top half of me, you weren't sure if it was a chick or a dude in uniform, I mean, I got accused of being a lesbian more than I got accused of anything, which I was perfectly fine with, because I didn't want to date anybody in my unit anyway. So I was cool with it. And then I had tons of awesome lesbian friends that I made. So it was great. No, I'm half kidding. But no, it was really hard transition for me to transition to spouse, and everything that went along with that, because it can be a treacherous world in the spouses territory. Mm-hmm. In the FRG world, it can be territory. It can be treacherous. So, and it didn't really prepare me for it, to be honest with you. And there's a line of animosity between female soldiers and spouses. I also wasn't liked because I was when I was still a soldier spouse, because I was a soldier spouse for a little while, because it was in the beginning of the war. And so FRG I'm talking beginning of the war, like 2001, 2003. Okay. So I was a spouse while I was a soldier. And so I would go to FRG meetings and stuff, and I would always be late and in uniform. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I got stuff to do. But there was definitely a line of animosity because I was a female soldier. because female soldiers were seen as the predators, as we wanted to steal their husbands.
Wow. See, I was at one point both the spouse and a veteran or a military serving. And so I had that, but I never, on the Air Force side, I guess I never saw that. But I also never I never got super involved in the spouse club.
I didn't either. I went for updates.
Yeah, probably.
Because it was 2003. That was the only way you were getting them back then.
Yeah, well, that's true. And Army a little bit different than Air Force, because a lot of them are more of them were going to the field than in the Air Force side of the house. So
yeah,
very different. But so how'd you make that transition? I can talk today. How did you make that transition? Did you find somebody that you were able to, maybe another spouse in the unit or somebody that you were able to make a bond with, or how did you get through that? So that if we have a viewer on right now, how can we help them through that transition to make it a beautiful transition instead of a struggle like it was for you?
So, I mean, I guess it took time. It took a lot of time. But a lot of it just took kind of backing away and finding my village, my people. And I have great friends, now that are military spouses that I wouldn't trade for anything. I actually have a plaque that says, so someone took this thing that says, toughest job in the U.S. Army is military spouses, because I used to want to rip them off of people's cars. I was a very angry person back then. I'm sorry. So they took it, they put it on a plaque for me, and all my neighbors signed it. And, one of them was like, I hate Army spouses, huh? And they knew, I used to introduce myself that way. Oh my God, you seem so kind and nice. Probably won't be friends with you though. It's cool. I was a little standoffish myself too, because if you've been burnt a whole lot, you become standoffish. But I had this tribe at Fort Knox that really helped change that dialogue in my own head. And they really, I'm still friends with most of them today, whether it's through social media contact, or one of them actually moved here for a while. And so we got to be real life buddies again. And so I think it's just finding, not everybody's going to be your cupcake. Not everybody's going to be your tribe. Not everybody's going to be, somebody that you would be friends with normally outside of the unit or outside of the organization. But there's definitely kindred spirits that you can find within, maybe even not your husband's or spouse's unit, but definitely within the Army as a whole. There's a tribe for you. You just have to find it and be open to it. Open to it.
No wonder you're a part of my tribe. I didn't even know all of this. Now I know why we're so connected. I know why we get along so well. So let's talk now about being a spouse and what it's like to be a spouse, and moving around with assignments, and having to pick up and start careers or jobs all over again. You have done an amazing job of transitioning between jobs, even when you lived in the same city. So I've known you, and you've done several things here in Colorado Springs, but you are amazing at transitioning to the new job and the new environment. And I want to talk about that, because I truly believe that's a skill that you learn as a spouse, or even as a military serving member. It's just some of the skills you learn. So can we talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the reasons we're so good at adapting is because the Army specifically, I can't speak for the Air Force, but specifically the Army throws you in the most unique situations, whether it's the middle of the bayou in Louisiana or the middle of the tundra in Alaska. They really know how to throw it at you and be like, hey, try this new adventure. And so, I have a spouse friend right now. I don't really call her that normally, but she is a spouse and she is my friend. She's more my friend. but she's been to Japan and Egypt, and I'm just watching her travel all over the world. And I do think that we share that quality. Just being able to, like you said, yeah, pick up, and there's so many spouses that choose to do like an MLM or a direct marketing kind of thing because they can kind of stay put. They can keep their norm with them. I never did that. I always,
You're the rebel.
I'm the rebel. Yeah. I had to, so I actually made a promise to my husband when we moved here. He was like, listen to me. You're not opening a business. You're not starting a business. You're going to go, and if you're going to get a job, you're going to go work somewhere. You're not going to start another business. Cause I've started quite a few of them. And I actually, most of you don't know this about me. The fluid career that I made as a choice was I am actually a medical massage therapist. And so that was you have to have a fluid career, right? And so that was my fluid transitional career that I did everywhere from Alaska to Louisiana to Kentucky to wherever. We literally, as a unit family, my daughter has moved to 15 different homes. And so we have moved a lot. This is the longest we've been anywhere in my husband's career. Normally we move every 2 years. In fact, at Fort Polk, they were like, how did you get out of here in 2 years? I was like, girl, we got out on good behavior. I don't know. Some people love it there, so I'm not trying to bash, but it was not for, it's a very small town. There is not a lot to do there, and just for like work and things like that. So yeah, I think it's ingrained in you. You either fight it or you go with the flow. And if you fight it, you're going to lose. That's why people end up with divorces. That's why people end up with depression. That's why that's one of the biggest reasons we have such a hard time in our community, is because not everybody is flexible and not everybody can go with the flow. Lots of people need it just so. And if you're going to stick with that, you're going to have a really hard time in the military. So really the only option you have is to rage with the river. And so if you do that, you're going to be fine.
I'm going to use that. Rage with the river. I got to write that one down.
It is. It's definitely raging some days,
Yeah.
and you have to be able to transition well. You have to be able to go on to the next thing. This recent transition in my life was super hard for that reason, because I'm getting to a point where my husband's retiring and I want to stop transitioning. I'm done. I'm good. I don't want to transition anymore. I'm probably going to transition at least one more time, sadly, but not away from this job, but just a big transition is coming for our family. We have some big things we want to do. But yeah, transition it becomes just kind of a normal part of your life. You don't even think about it. But this last one was really hard for me because I don't like to change jobs very often or do things like that. But this was the right move at the right time for me. And I needed to realize that. This wasn't a transition because of my husband or because of a move. So
it was the right time. And the nice thing is, even with everything going on right now in the world, and the uncertainty with so many people right now, I think the people that tend to thrive right now are those that can roll with the punches. When I met my husband, I'm on my second marriage, and when I met my current husband, the one thing that I admired most about him, he was like me, is he lets it just roll off his shoulders. He's a cop, so again, comes from a background similar to the military, where you go with the flow and you make things happen. And I just think that's a skill that nobody, but very few people outside of the military or first responders or those type of careers really have, because most of them have been stay put for so long and get in a comfort zone, per se, and they don't want to get out of that box of the comfort zone. And I think military or spouses in military were forced outside of that comfort zone for so long that it's easier for us to embrace being outside of it.
Yeah.
So words of advice before we wrap up that you would give to either somebody considering going in the military or marrying a marrying a military man or woman, because it could be a guy. There are many women who serve, so you could have met somebody and you're a guy and she's wearing the boots in the family.
Yeah.
And you know what that's like. What words of advice would you have?
I think it just would be, get on the raft and flow with the river, rage with the river, and that's for both. And I think it works for both, because I think that whether you're choosing to join the military as a military active duty member or some sort of National Guard or reservist, which, peace and love to our troops right now, to our National Guards people right now. I'm heartbroken for them that they're having to face this right now. Just in general, like, nobody wants to be standing against their own people in a parking lot defending a building, period. I don't care who you are. That's not where you want to be today. So my prayers and hopes go out to them. But yeah, like, just, it's a raging river. Get on the raft and hold on. Like, whether that's because you're active duty or it's because you're a military spouse, if you're never going to know what's around the corner, you're never going to know what's coming up. So the best thing you can do is just, stay tight and stay the course, because life's going to throw things at you. And that's all you can do is go with the flow.
Yeah. Embrace change.
Yeah. Embrace it.
And since you are getting ready to transition again, with your spouse retiring, do you have any words of wisdom for those that are currently serving, or spouses that have a spouse getting ready to retire? Do you have any words of wisdom for them, even if they're like because you've been preparing for this for a while? I mean, we've had some discussions, and I know that as much as Aimee's a badass, and that Aimee prepares, and Aimee's been thinking about this for a couple of years, and I think your husband has too. And what words of advice would you tell people that are coming up on 2, 3, 4 years out from retirement? What would you tell them to do right now?
Gosh, I'm in the thick of it right now, so perception might be better in a couple of months. But I would say, just know you can't really over prepare for this next chapter of your life. But at the same time, don't let it absorb your life, because it can get very daunting and very absorbing, all cumbersome. But I think the biggest thing that we've taken away so far is let it be fun. Let it be, you get to choose your own adventure now, which can be really scary for those of us that have been just riding the rapids, right? We've just been going along with the flows for so long. We don't even really know what we do want. We were like, what are we going to do? And at first we were taking the easy course, and we're like, okay, we're going to stay on the rapids. We're going to go, DOD. My husband's going to work at he's going to get a gov job, all the things that everybody thinks of once. But then during COVID and this time, we've really thought, let's think outside the box. What could we do to not be strapped to the military for the next 20 years again? And so that's been where our mindset has been too, is like, okay, let's start to think outside the box. Let's start to think, what other options do we have? And so that's one thing I think I would remind people is, you have choices again. Enjoy going through them. It doesn't mean you're not going to become a government contractor or a DOD employee like so many do, but just know that you have options and choices out there, and make sure that whatever you do is going to make you happy.
Right. And, I didn't even think about that until you were talking about it. I mean, I guess I did in the back of my mind, but when you get out, now that I think of it, when I made the transition in January of 2015 and I retired, I had already started something on the side, which is what we do now. But really, for the most part, now as a reservist, I had some choices. But when you're in the military, you are told what to do, when to do it, where you're going to be assigned, and you just have to go with the flow. And maybe that's why I had trouble after retirement, is I didn't even think about it till you and I were having this conversation and you said that, is that now you have choices and you haven't, that's the one thing you have not had the luxury for the most part of doing in the military. Is yes, you get a dream sheet and you get choices, but we all know that they usually aren't where you end up. And so they make you think like you have choices. And so maybe that's why so many people struggle at transition, is because I can do anything. Like I have a choice. I can do whatever I want to do. And so embrace the change and explore. I have lots of connections to people that can help you in the transition. So if you are a transitioning soldier, or airman or Marine or reservist, please reach out to me. I have tons of connections that can help you explore where your passion is, sort of like Aimee's doing right now. They're exploring where their passion is and what is going to make them truly happy in retirement. And I'm super excited because the curtain's been pulled back a little bit and I kind of know what might be coming in the future for them. And I'm super excited for them. And once things pan out, if they pan out the way we hope they do, hopefully I will be able to have Aimee back on to tell about what this new chapter looks like in their life, because it's pretty darn exciting. One last thing is, we kind of touched on it, but we really haven't talked about it. Is that now you're with Red Oak Exteriors, and Jeff is the owner of that company here in Colorado Springs. They do roofs and exterior siding. What all do they do so that we can give them a plug, since you are working for them?
Yes.
Tell us, give us the 60-second commercial for Red Oak and why they should come talk to you or Jeff or Danny or that over at Red Oak.
Yeah. So great question. Thanks for asking, Brenda. So Red Oak Exteriors does exactly what the name says we do. We do everything outside your home. So windows, siding, roofs, and solar. So we actually, we also do home energy audits. So that's something kind of taking us inside the home, but still working with the outside. So we can see, rather than just putting solar on a home or new siding on a home, maybe they're having some energy loss that we can deal with first to try to bring down some of their electrical usage, just to make things a little bit easier on the homeowner when they do decide to go solar or need a new roof or kind of whatever home improvements they're making. Maybe they need some new insulation in the attic, and we can add insulation to the attic before going solar to help them just save some costs, and they're not losing any energy in that way.
Awesome. Now,
Yeah.
I think they also do like decks and like, do they do like sunrooms and that, or just roofing and siding and that?
So we used to do decks and sunrooms, but now we've pulled back because we've really, Jeff is very dedicated to the environment and dedicated to just kind of this eco-friendly approach. And so really what we're kind of gearing towards is that home energy audit, the solar, and the roofing is just kind of our main focus at the moment. And then siding and windows go along with that home improvement or home energy audit situation. But we kind of have veered away from the decking and the sunroofs for that reason, because we really want to put our focus where we think it's, going to be most valuable to our customers.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that, because we never shared it in the thing. We were all about Aimee and what Aimee's up to, and your experience in the service and as a spouse. So thank you again so much for being on this morning. I really appreciate you being in my circle. And if you have any questions for Aimee, if you are maybe considering being a spouse, or maybe you're serving and you've met somebody and you're like, do I want to go down this path? Aimee might be one to reach out to and to just talk to about that transition. And if you're getting ready to transition, I would love to have a conversation with you and help you to make that transition smoother. So if you are a veteran, if you are the spouse of a veteran or the child of a veteran, I would love to potentially interview you on my Military Mondays. So reach out to me. I'd love to have a conversation with you and see if you're a good fit. But with that, I look forward to seeing everybody next Monday on Military Mondays. Bye, everyone.
Bye, Brenda. Thank you so much, honey.
You're welcome.